narcissist. What's up? My name's Erin. That's better. I go by Irritable Bitch Syndrome because I have irritable bowels and I'm also a bitch.
This is editing me, superior, wiser, hotter me. Yeah, I'm using this dumbass Sims music because I'm lazy and I don't feel like finding anything else.
So basically I asked people on my Instagram if they could ask me some questions about mental health, and I would just kind of talk about it because, you know, I'm mentally ill. And I just feel like it's an important thing to talk about. It's something that not a lot of people talk about. And I'm ready to discuss my experiences. Of course, keeping in mind that I am definitely not a mental health professional or a therapist or whatever. Obviously, I don't have the answers to all the questions. I can just respond based on my own experiences. So that's kind of just a disclaimer. The first question I want to answer is, what is your diagnosis and how do you feel about it? So, diagnoses is the more proper term, but basically I have what's called bipolar 2, which is essentially a form of bipolar. How I explain it is I go through ups and downs like one would with the bipolar disorder, or what you would typically think of bipolar disorder, but I have way more lows than I have highs, and my highs aren't that high, if that makes sense. So instead of experiencing bouts of mania, I'll put a definition of that here, it's more hypomania. So it's mania, but not so much. I also have an anxiety disorder, and I also have premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which, how I describe it, it's like PMS on steroids, like it is, and that happens to me every month. And combined with my bipolar disorder, it can be pretty catastrophic. I also have obsessive compulsive tendencies, such as intrusive thoughts and skin picking. It's really bad. Also, I have IBS, which isn't a psychological disorder, but what happens in your brain is so like intertwined with what happens in your gut, which is like really weird. But yes, just thought I'd mention it. What I feel about it is, honestly, diagnoses are very comforting to me because it means that I wasn't like making it up. It's something that's been studied before, and there are things that we can do to manage everything that I have going on. Okay, next question. How do I stop myself from staying in bed every day until 3 p.m.? Relatable. Literally, I have felt so shitty all day, just like depressed, bummed out, whatever, and I was like, you know, I'm gonna film this video. This is something that I struggle with a lot, just like staying in bed, and what I try to do is I have little lists of things that I can get done that aren't really big things, but just like little necessary things, like maybe washing the dishes or doing your laundry. And if those are like too big, like I get it, you could do something like do a craft that you enjoy, and like even if it's you're still in your bed, just like doing a little something like with your hands, kind of getting things going a little bit. If anything, I would say if you really can't get out of bed, at least get out of bed once and like change your underwear and like change your clothes, and you know, maybe take a shower if you can. It really is just like little incremental things that add up to a bigger change over time. Do you have a song you listen to or other activity that helps you pull out of a negative spiral? I don't really listen to music. I don't know, I listen to podcasts, but as far as activities, more recently I've been making earrings, I've been crafting. and it's something that makes me feel really productive and creative, and it's also something that I can do while like watching TV or something like that, so I can feel relaxed but productive and moving at the same time. And then this person also asked, do you think people romanticize mental illness too much, or is it not even a problem? Okay, so I definitely think mental illness is romanticized. I've talked about this before, the trope of the manic pixie dream girl, and how it's corresponding with the symptoms that someone would have, like me with bipolar disorder, but the main character, his voice is like, oh, she's so mysterious and like unpredictable and like whatever. It's like, bitch, she needs a mood stabilizer. Like, that's not cute. I don't understand. I'm sweating. No, I feel like the same could be said about Kanye West. No matter what you think about him, I think, you know, he's talented. But in my opinion, I think his mental illness, bipolar disorder, his mania is what helps him create so much content. And people that are close to him are taking advantage of that. And in a way, I feel like that romanticizes mental illness. I also feel like it's romanticized by people who don't understand it, because I would never talk about it that way. But then again, there are people who, say in art, find comfort in writing about their mental illnesses in a romanticized way to cope. It's hard. It's like, I mean, there's no one clear answer, but in my opinion, it's romanticized, and I'm like, that's not the look. This is not the vibe, ladies. Okay, let's move on. When working on a project inspired by / about mental health struggles, how do you work on it without letting yourself get caught up in the negative feelings again? This is a really good question, because for people that like don't know me very well, I'm a writer. I have my English degree in creative writing. So yeah, and a lot of my work is about me and my experiences, and even if I write fiction, it's always derived from my own experiences. And in my case, it would be about mental health or problems that I've had with my mental health or whatever. And you do have to give yourself space when working on a project about something that upsets you. You need to give yourself time. If you have a deadline, don't start working on it the night before, because it is a slower process essentially working through your trauma in your art. But I did read this tweet recently about writing about trauma, and I found it really helpful, and if I can find it, I'm gonna read it. What the fuck is it? What the fuck, mate? Oh, here it is. Found it. This woman, her name is Therese Melot. I'll put her name in her @ on the screen, but she says, when I'm teaching students how to write about trauma, I often ask them to carry 5 other stories about themselves for protection, like a verbal medicine bundle. There's what happened to you, how you survived, and carry other stories like how you learned to gut a fish, or how you used to bind your own books as a child, the time you stood up for yourself at work, occasions where you felt joy. Carry many stories about yourself, give yourself dynamism, and let that dynamism inform your work. And I thought that was like just great, because we aren't just the things that we struggle with, we're a whole layered, complex person and with a complex story. And I thought that that was just great, that I'm not just focusing on one thing. Another thing that I think is important is it is hard, so hard, and almost impossible to write a good piece about something that's just happened to you, or like you're still working through, because you don't have that insight on the situation. You just have like the scene, the moment, the visceral moment of what's happening, and it's hard to reflect on it, so it's hard to make a piece that is well-rounded when you're going through a situation that hasn't ended yet. And I'm not saying that your situation has to end. However, I will say that I find it much easier to write about things that I went through when I was a child or in high school or even like 5 years ago than it is for me to write about something that happened a week ago, if that makes sense. Next question. What are some strategies of dealing with a loved one whose behavior shows some kind of mental illness but who doesn't think they need help? Meanwhile, you have to deal with their ass as if you are a therapist. I feel this because I feel like I've been on both sides of this, definitely like in denial, not wanting help, not wanting to accept people's help, but also in a situation where somebody needs help but they refuse to accept it. Of course, this varies so much case by case, but ultimately, people need to want help. And if you feel like you're being the therapist in a situation, it's evident that they want help. They want help from you, they want help in general. But it's good that you're accepting that you can't give that kind of help. And in the end, that kind of help you can only really get from a professional. In some cases, people don't want to go to therapy. You can't force somebody to like get help and go to therapy. And even if like you do force them to go, they can just sit there and like be quiet. Like I've done that. I'm a fucking brat. But you have to want to get help. And that's so important because like nobody can force you to do anything, especially when you're an adult. Sometimes it might help if, say, they're starting to go to therapy, if you go with them. Sometimes it'll help to get more insight on the situation. They won't feel as pressured to like talk. And I've had that before. I've sometimes gone to tough therapy sessions like with my mom and had her like talk a little bit for me, and then when I'm comfortable then I can start talking. That was more when I was younger, but there are ways kind of around that stubborn nature, you know. What's something you considered self-care in the past but now realize it's destructive? Okay, this is really embarrassing for me to talk about, but I am so bad about shopping, like online shopping, buying things on, this is like, I like hate this about myself. Like in the moment I'm always like, oh, I deserve it, you know, like it's self-care, but it is honestly something that I do when I'm feeling really low. And an example, literally like I did this like a week ago. I was in such like a down, depressed state where I didn't even remember I bought so much stuff. I bought so much stuff, and like I just came home to my apartment from being somewhere else for a week, and I came back and I had so many packages. It was like so embarrassing for me. Like some guy that lived in my building, he came up to me, he was like, oh, that's your stuff? Like, dang. And I was like, I know. But like, I really just need to work on not spending money. But also like not feeling guilty when I like spend money sometimes. Ugh, it's a catch-22. I'm gonna move on. This is a big question. What is your take on the stigma surrounding medication for mental illness? Okay, so long story short, I take a lot of medication. A lot of it. I have a bunch of my meds here. It's just like a physical like representation, you know? So much. This isn't even all of it. Like, and I don't even know how I feel about that sometimes, but at the end of the day, medication saved my life. Literally saved my life. Medication is really hard because even like doctors and whatever don't know how it works. Like I take lithium for my mood stabilizer, and it's like, it's the age-old medication for bipolar disorder. They even said like, oh, like we don't know how or why it works, but it works, so you should take it. And I'm like, like, like why should I trust you on that? But it works. And you know, I can't say that about every other kind of medication because I have tried so many different kinds. There was a period in my life where it was like 6 months straight, I was just trying and failing at so many medications. They like, some of them would make me feel like depressed and suicidal, and like some of them would make me like sweat, and like not every medication is for everybody. So like if your friend is taking a medication, it doesn't mean that that's necessarily the right one for you. while medication has saved my life, there's also a side to it where it's like, it's a business. And I feel like that's why I was put on certain medications, was so that the doctor could get a cut. So that's kind of my experience with medication. I take it every day, twice a day. I have a little color-coded like pill box, which is really helpful. I'm also like anal as fuck, but I keep doing this it's because I'm depressed, bro. I keep doing this thing where I forget what I'm gonna say and then I just end up staring into space. So that's been my experience with medication, but some people who have never even like been through that experience try to come at me and tell me that like I don't need it, which at this point I do. I'm gonna have to be on medication for the rest of my life, and I've accepted that. For me to live a kind of normal life, this is what I have to do. None of your fucking business. Second of all, they'll tell me alternatives for medication that like, God, y'all get me worked up. Marijuana, like, been there, done that, not into it, gross, like, no thank you. If that works for you, fine, but don't try and like impress it onto me. I've had someone message me on Facebook and be like, have you tried being vegan? That offended me. It's like, do you guys think I'm not trying to find the best option for me and that meds are just a cop-out? Because meds are a journey, you know? And some people get lucky. Some people will try one and then that's the med they're on and it works and that's great. That's like great for them. I'm jealous of that because I've had really tough experiences with meds. I've been not only in the hospital like for purely psych reasons, but I've also been in the hospital because of the adverse effects of coming off of medication. So when people tell me like, oh, like you don't need them, like, have you tried essential oils? I'm just like, fuck off. I could make a whole video about meds. Let me know if that's of interest to anybody, and I'll do it. Why does it look like I have a mustache? I'm moving on. Not a question, but a topic. Mental health as it relates to physical health, gut health specifically. And then they also say, example, my IBS goes nuts whenever my mental health is trash. Bro. My IBS is something that I never really struggled with until like maybe the past 3 years of my life. For those who don't know like what it is, I talk about it all the time, but irritable bowel syndrome, it's kind of an umbrella term for just like an irritable bowel. It's not like a super specific diagnosis, because I've tried to like, I've had a colonoscopy, ladies, like I to see like what is wrong with my gut. At the end of the day, I think we really found out that a lot of my gut issues, I hate that word, a lot of my gut issues come from mental health. And like when I'm having a really depressive time or when I'm like really anxious about something, I gotta poop, okay? like I gotta go immediately. And it's like, this is something that is a continuous process for me, is learning about my gut health and how it is so closely intertwined with my brain. For me right now, it's like trying to manage my anxiety, which is like hard, taking my medication every day, you know, and I'm also on meds specifically for like my gut. I take a cholesterol medication. I don't really know what that does. And then I also have other options on days when it's like diarrhea dookie all the time. I'll take Imodium, which like stops you up. And I know this isn't really good advice, like if you don't really like taking medication, I get it, but like for now, I'm keeping a very delicate balance on how I deal with my IBS. That's a really good question. Next! If your own brain cells call you a stupid piece of shit, how do you reply? Sorry, my brain was just calling me a stupid piece of shit just now. I was just listening. But this is hard. I've my whole life, I've struggled with intrusive thoughts. Like, if you don't know what that is, I'm gonna try and put in a definition here, but just thoughts that like, oh, you're stupid, oh, you're faking it, oh, like, you don't deserve anything, and everybody hates you, and it's just like, oh, I struggle with it every single day. Basically, it's like your brain, for whatever reason, sneaky bitch, she's trying to trick you. And it's so easy when people like ask me about this and they tell me about this, like, oh, my brain's telling me I'm a piece of shit, and I'm like, you're not a piece of shit, your brain's a fucking liar. What my mom used to tell me, she was like, this would piss me off when she would say it when I was younger, but it's like good advice now. She would say like, that's called junk mail. Do you remember the mail? USPS, RIP. So you get a lot of mail and a bunch of it's junk, like, you know, like buy a flat screen TV or, you know, coupons or whatever. You can throw it out. You don't have to listen to it at all. And it's hard, and I feel like such a hypocrite telling you this like advice because I don't even take it myself. It's really hard. I guess what I can say is that I'm with you on this. This is an interesting one. What are some ways to regain your appetite if it's lost due to stress/depression? This is hard for me because I've had issues with food in the past. Not as much now, but when I was younger. And for me, eating does coincide so strongly with my depression and my moods and everything. And when I'm feeling down, there are days where I just like won't eat because like either it doesn't feel worth it or I'll forget because I'm just like so in my head about everything and just depressed. What I can say about this is try and make food enjoyable for you as much as you can when you're coming out of this depression. So maybe that means like ordering something from Grubhub or whatever, or cooking something that you really enjoy and kind of making food something enjoyable again. Make food enjoyable again. That's my Oh, 2020, what a mess, you guys. When you have bad days, how do you hold and experience that without allowing yourself to just get stuck? This is such a good question because for me, this is all about like invalidating your experience, like being sick and like being depressed and being low while also not being totally consumed by it. And this is like so important. For me, there are certain times when I get really low compared to other times. I'm at the point in my illness that I can kind of track when I'm gonna feel a certain way and when I'm gonna be low or whatever. So say it's this one day of the month where I know I'm just gonna be like checked out, like it doesn't even matter like what's going on, like my brain is like not there. It's to just take it off, like call off work if you can. I did this just the other day, like I was just not there at all, and it would have been worse for me to go to work and not be there than like, you know, whatever, you know what I'm saying. What I do is I take that day, or sometimes it's 2 days, and I just completely feel everything that I'm feeling and just soaking it all up. And then once those days are over and I could feel myself getting out of the rut, then I start pushing myself, because it's important to push yourself. You can't just succumb to the bad feeling and be in bed all the time. Sometimes that's the case, but it's better to just keep going. So maybe after that you go back to work, or you see a friend, or even smaller than that, like I said earlier, do small things like, you know, take out the trash or paint your nails, whatever, you know, everybody's different. Basically, I give myself a amount of time to feel like that, and then I try harder and harder and harder to get out of it, so I don't get stuck. It's slow, and you have to be able to be okay with giving yourself time to fucking relax, you know? I am so bad. I have such a guilt about like relaxing. I don't know if it's like my generation or like what. Like people say we're fucking entitled, but I'm like, I don't deserve anything. I don't deserve a nap, and like I get so guilty about doing things that I enjoy, and I think that's something that we can like all work on, you know. Oh my god, I'm sweaty. Oh, so I liked doing this. I think talking about mental health is so important. It's so stigmatized because there's like there's so much misconception and misunderstanding about what it is and what we do to survive, you know, and I think just talking about it makes it easier for other people to talk about it, and I want to be able to talk about it. Ah! Why am I so sweaty? Holy shit. But yeah, this is something that I would like to do periodically. Please ask me questions about mental health on Instagram or in the comments. Whatever's more convenient to you. Text me, I don't care. I just want to talk. I want to be able to talk about it. I want to be able to talk. I love talking about myself and my experiences, and if it helps people, then I want to do that. Am I a narcissist? No. I hate myself too much to be a narcissist. Yeah. Let me know if a video specifically about meds and my experience with meds, even like what kind of meds I take, if that's of interest to you, because I'd be interested in talking about that. I think it's a taboo subject nobody wants to talk about. I'll do it. I'm a martyr. God, I'm so annoying. Yeah. So thanks for participating and watching, hopefully, and I hope you liked it. If you didn't like it, I hope you like it. And I hope you affirm my feelings because, woo! I need compliments all the time. Oh, that's unhealthy. Yeah. Catch you next time.